December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor, Territory of Hawaii. At 07:55 hours, the first Japanese bombs fell on Battleship Row. Among the 1,177 sailors and Marines who would die that morning aboard the USS Arizona was Fireman Second Class John Raymond Stratton, a 23-year-old from Holton, Indiana. Just one of the nearly 2,400 Americans who perished in the surprise attack that thrust the United States into World War II. For decades, John's name remained little more than a line in casualty lists, a name on a military plaque, a face in a faded photograph. But for those who would later seek to understand his life and sacrifice, his story became a bridge, not just to history, but to the deeply personal cost of war that echoes through generations. John was born on October 23, 1918, in the quiet farming community of Ripley County, Indiana, the son of Frank Stratton and Amy Jane Edens. He grew up in a world defined by hard work, close-knit kinship, and the rhythms of rural life. Census records from 1920 and 1930 show him as one of at least 6 children, in a household where both the Stratton and Edens families lived within a few miles of each other, tending fields, raising livestock, and gathering for Sunday dinners under the wide Indiana sky. A photograph dated August 9, 1925, captures a rare moment of stillness. An extended family portrait in which a 7-year-old John sits beside his cousin Virgil Edens, both boys in overalls, their expression serious yet hopeful. A snapshot of innocence long before the shadow of global war would fall upon them. Like many young men of his generation, John sought opportunity beyond the farm. In a time when the Great Depression had left few paths forward, the U.S. Navy offered steady pay, discipline, and purpose. He enlisted, trained, and was assigned to the Pacific Fleet, eventually boarding the mighty USS Arizona, a 31,400-ton battleship that was the pride of the fleet, home to over 1,500 men. As a fireman, second class, John worked in the ship's engineering spaces, tending the boilers that powered the vessel's massive turbines. It was hot, grueling work, deep in the belly of the ship, far from the open decks and the tropical breezes of Oahu. On the morning of December 7, 1941, the Arizona was moored at F7, the southernmost berth on Battleship Row. At 0806, a 1,760-pound armor-piercing bomb dropped by a Japanese high-altitude bomber struck the ship near Turret 2. The bomb penetrated the deck and detonated in the forward magazine, triggering a cataclysmic explosion that tore the ship apart. The blast was so violent it registered on seismographs in California. Within minutes, the Arizona sank, taking 1,177 men with her, more than half the American fatalities at Pearl Harbor. John Raymond Stratton was among them. His body was never recovered. For weeks, his family in Indiana heard nothing. In the chaos of the attack, communication lines were overwhelmed. Official notifications were delayed. It wasn't until Christmas Eve, 1941, that a notice appeared in Indiana newspapers. John was listed as missing in action. Imagine the anguish of Frank and Amy Stratton during those weeks, hoping against hope, scanning every casualty list, clinging to the possibility that their son might be found alive in a hospital or rescued at sea. That hope was finally extinguished on May 5, 1942. When the Indianapolis Star published a list of 58 Hoosiers who had died in the Navy since the outbreak of war. John's name was among them. For decades, John's story might have ended there, another name on a memorial, another life cut short before it could fully unfold. But in the 21st century, the tools of remembrance have changed. In November 2019, a descendant, while researching family burial plots, stumbled upon John's grave marker, not in Indiana, but at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, where a bronze plaque bears his name, rank, and the fateful date, December 7, 1941. This discovery sparked a journey of research that would span genealogy databases, military archives, newspaper archives, and conversations with historians. Through Ancestry.com and Fold3, his service records emerged. His enlistment, his assignment to the Arizona, his rank. The U.S. Navy casualty books confirmed his father's name and hometown. The World War II Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard casualty list listed him among the dead. But the most profound confirmation came from the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, DPAA. Their records state clearly that John Raymond Stratton is non-recoverable. His remains still rest within the sunken hull of the Arizona, which now serves as his final resting place and a national memorial. The ship, preserved in the silt of Pearl Harbor, is not just a war grave. It is a sacred site, visited by millions, where oil still leaks slowly from its tanks like black tears, as survivors once described. For those who never knew him, John's legacy lives in artifacts and archives. At the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, a fragment of the USS Arizona, twisted steel recovered from the wreck, is displayed in the Arsenal of Democracy Gallery. To most visitors, it is a relic of history. To John's family, it is a personal touchstone, a piece of the ship that took their son, brother, cousin, and friend. Researching a Pearl Harbor veteran is not merely an act of historical inquiry. It is an act of reclamation, of restoring dignity to a life that might otherwise be lost to time. It is about understanding not just how a man died, but how he lived, the farm he left behind, the uniform he wore with pride, the letters he may have written home, the dreams he carried into the engine room of a battleship on a quiet Sunday morning. John Raymond Stratton was 23 years old when he died. He never married. He never had children. He left no memoir, no diary, no recorded voice. But through the persistence of family, the rigor of archival research, and the reverence of national memory, his story endures. And in that endurance lies a truth deeper than victory or defeat. Every war is fought, not just by nations, but by individuals, and every individual deserves to be remembered. Today, as the last witnesses of Pearl Harbor fade from the earth, the responsibility of remembrance falls to us, not through grand monuments alone, but through the quiet work of tracing names, reading records, sharing stories, and ensuring that men like John Raymond Stratton are never reduced to a date on a plaque, but honored as the full human lives they were. For his family, and for all who seek to honor the fallen, his memory is not lost. It is carried forward, one photograph, one document, one story at a time. If the story of courage, sacrifice, and remembrance resonates with you, if you believe every veteran deserves to be more than a name on a plaque, we invite you to subscribe and join a community dedicated to preserving the true legacy of World War II. This channel is not about spectacle or myth. It's about honor, accuracy, and the human stories behind history. By subscribing, you help ensure that heroes like John Raymond Stratton and thousands like him are never forgotten, because history isn't just what happened, it's who we choose to remember.